Welcome to a review of the Nosty Disco Anti-Stat. Now, the Disco Anti-Stat is a cleaner of vinyl, a manual cleaner of vinyl, and as such it's relatively low cost. And when I say low cost, I mean, well, the price tends to float about a bit, somewhere in between 45 and 50 pounds. You can find a variety of retailers selling this one product on Amazon, for example. They're all over eBay and elsewhere, so they're easily accessible in terms of sourcing a sample for yourself. Now, if you want to give your vinyl a wash and brush up and you want to do it manually, this is a category filled to the brim with cleaning products that I wouldn't touch with a barge pole. It's also a category that's filled with a plethora of homebrew options, urban myths, and recommended cleaning solutions that are so scary to watch or hear about they would give Edgar Allan Poe goosebumps. More reliable manual cleaning solutions still present a busy area though. It can be achieved by the use of different types of brushes, felt pads, gizmos and more, with the help of 1001 different liquid concoctions. And this is one of those proposed cleaning solutions. A cleaning machine that arrives with its own cleaning liquid. It's been around for some time, I realise, but I've never properly reviewed it, and I thought it was about time. Now, this Nosty product, as I say, is called the Disco Anti-Stat, and as a name, I think it's pretty terrible. It's probably the worst hi-fi product name that I can think of, the Disco Anti-Stat. Then again, it's memorable, it stands out, and I suppose that's the point of a product name, isn't it? It's a stick in the head. It's certainly stuck in mine. But what does this product actually look like live, and how do you actually install it, and how do you use it? Well, before we get to the sound quality tests, let's find out and take a closer look. And welcome to the Disco Anti-Stat closer look section, and as you can see, we're looking at the box, and I'm showing you the box because, well, it's a little bit loud, I suppose. It's a little bit sort of, the circus is in town, but it gets the message across, of course, and for this price point, obviously that's what you need to do. As you can see just to the right, this product is made in Germany and has been going since 1978, which is a fair old stretch. Now, the parts are simple to use and the system is relatively easy to install. Out of the box, you will find the largest part, the bath. This is the part that will ultimately support the record while cleaning too. And if I just tip it up to show you, inside you can just see in the center there the two brushes. Now they do the actual cleaning. If I tip now the bath the other way, you'll see the hidden drying rack, and there's the hole to access. You pull the rack out of the bath. In fact, let me show you how to do that. So stick a finger in there, give it a pull, and out should pop, there we go, out should pop the drying rack, which is an ingenious way of saving space. Now in the center of this rack there's a little collection area where your dripping vinyl will deposit excess liquid, and it'll collect just there in the center. Can you see that? Also note at the top of each of one of those prongs there's a clear plastic addition there. These are there basically to stop the prongs scratching your vinyl as your vinyl dries. A nice touch. Other parts include a two-part clamp that you can see in front of you here, and a funnel filter. We'll get to the funnel in a moment. One half of the clamp you can see here includes the bayonet axle, and you can just see that sticking out of the center of the clamp. This axle pushes through the record's center spindle hole. The other side of the clamp screws over this axle while the vinyl forms a sort of meat in the sandwich. Now both sides of the clamp can then be screwed to tighten, and you'll find that one side of the clamp tightens in a clockwise fashion and the other in an anti-clockwise manner, which makes adding and removing the clamp easy to do. So let me show you how this works, and I've chosen a record by the Dean of all Martins, Dean Martin. This one I picked up from a car boot sale, haven't touched it since I actually bought it, and it is prime for cleaning. So before you actually plunge your record into the bath of the Nosty, you need to insert that axle. As I say, it's in two parts. Insert the part with the large protruding axle through the center label first. You can see the axle sticking through the label as so. Then you reach for the other half of the clamp and over the axle that goes. You can see it now sticking through. Then you twist and you screw on, because the axle has a screw thread. You screw on the other part of the clamp and tighten. One half of the clamp screws clockwise, the other moves in an anti-clockwise manner, and you fix the clamp to the record in that way. Now notice that there are two pieces of axle, one sticking out either side of the record. Both of those will rest in the bath runnels, and that will allow the record to rotate during cleaning. Also note, because the clamp is a snug fit, note how the center label is now completely hidden. And because it's hidden, and because that clamp is a snug fit, none of the cleaning liquid during the cleaning process will leak underneath that clamp to wet the label. It will remain dry throughout. To clean, you add the supplied cleaning liquid, as you can see here, which has already been diluted and is ready to use. You put that in the bath itself, and I'll talk more about this liquid later on. The manufacturer wants you to pour enough liquid until the level reaches the uppermost part of the internally fitted brushes, but I would advise against that, otherwise you risk running just a bit too close to the label area. Now I know I've just said the label is protected by the clamps, but even so, I wouldn't want to tempt Providence here. So let's go ahead and fill that bath. Just take off the top here, and you can pour the liquid, as I say, straight into the bath because it's pre-diluted. And we'll have a look inside the bath at the levels in our next shot. Now there may be some records where a dry run is a good thing, because some record labels, especially some older labels, vary in size. Now we're looking inside the bath now, and you can see right in the center the two brushes fixed inside the bath. Now I need to add a little bit more liquid to get to the desired level, and that desired level I would say is around 1/2 centimeter from the top of those brushes. Get to that point and I would say that's your ideal level. That is, fill the bath and leave 1/2 centimeter of brush exposed at the top there. Then you insert the record into the bath itself. The clamp provides full support. Then you're ready to rotate the record manually to clean. The instructions are a bit on the wishy-washy side, no pun intended, but when it comes down to just how many rotations you need, during tests I found that 6 full rotations to the right are sufficient. I won't do that many here. When completed, change direction. You reverse the direction and complete another 6 rotations in the opposite direction, and then you're sorted. That basically, for me, is one clean, one cycle. Rotating the record in this manner allows the brushes to attack the groove grime from both directions, encouraging stubborn muck to be dislodged. As I say, you may require multiple cleanings depending on the state of the record. When completed, you need to then partially lift out the record by its clamp axles, not all the way. This just allows the major runoff part of the liquid to run straight back into the bath before you move the record elsewhere over to the drying rack. And in the rack it goes for drying, and the next stage is for you to grab a cup of tea or coffee. Now, there are a couple of ways you can get rid of that clamp. You can undo the clamp while it's in the rack, as I'm attempting vaguely to do here, or you can remove that clamp before it gets anywhere near the rack. And this is my preferred method, to be honest. I just rest the record and the clamp on my right hand, and with my left hand I unscrew the clamp so, and then over the vinyl goes on the other side to remove the other half of the clamp. The record, which now with a bit of luck will come back into focus. Thank you very much. That now goes into the rack, and now we can have our cup of tea or coffee. According to the instructions, you then place a filter in the supplied funnel, put the end of that in the end of a cleaning liquid bottle, and return the entire bath liquid back to the bottle, while any muck will be trapped in those filters. But I just think it's too much hassle, and I wouldn't bother. Depending on the grimy nature of your records, I would use the bath liquid until it's too contaminated to use, and then dispose of the same, then refill with new liquid. In between, to prevent airborne contamination, by all means cover the bath with a cloth, or, a better alternative, shape a large piece of kitchen foil over the bath entrance, which will be spotlessly clean. A cloth might not be. That can be shaped into a rough bath shape and has the elements of rigidity and also weight, so will stay put when the Disco Anti-Stat is not in use. By all means use the funnel filter combo as an interim cleaner, but rather than doing what Nosty wants you to do and place the entire contents of the bath back in the original bottle, I would find your own bottle. Make sure it's clean it with distilled water, make sure it has a screw top, or you can cover the entrance with more foil, and use that as your temporary storage. Now there is one footnote: you can clean other sized pieces of vinyl. In addition to 12-inch, you can clean 7-inch singles, as you can see here, and also 10-inch discs as well. If you'd like to clean dinked 7-inch singles, i.e. they have no center spindle holder, then you can do that with this white little adapter here. All you have to do is remove the white adapter. It will come away from that center axle. Once the adapter is free, you reverse it and then you place it back onto that same axle. As you can see here, on it goes, and it protrudes just enough to fill that gap in the dinked single. As you can see here, I have one such single, and over it goes, and it fits quite snugly over the adapter. And on goes the other half of the clamp, twist to secure, and you're sorted. And that, my friends, is the Nosty Disco Anti-Stat in all its plastic glory. But how does the Disco Anti-Stat actually sound? Well, let's go over to the sound tests and we'll find out. And welcome to the sound quality section of this review. And because we're looking at a cleaning machine, I grabbed me one or two pieces of vinyl to clean. But I thought, to begin with, I'd try a tough one. I thought I'd dive straight into the deep end with the Disco Anti-Stat, and so I picked up a copy of Barclay James Harvest's Time Honoured Ghosts on Polydor. This one I haven't touched since I actually bought the thing. It's been sitting in my to-do pile and it's been waiting attention, cleaning and the rest. So now's a good time. This LP exhibited none of the usual dirty record characteristics of snap, crackle and pop. Play was actually silent. The music sounded good. Yet I wanted to see if the Disco Anti-Stat could improve the sound from that point. This record had never been cleaned by myself, so I wondered if there was still room for improvement. And by gum there was, absolutely. The improvements were stark, immediate and wide-ranging. Principally, the soundstage hit me first. It now sounded larger, wider, higher and definitely more spacious. The amount of space in and around the soundstage really allowed the band to roam now. In contrast, the soundstage did sound claustrophobic before the Disco Antistat cleaned the record. Also, the lead vocal did have a slight edge, an unpleasant upper mid-range attack that made listening at high volumes pretty uncomfortable. That had gone now. After the clean, the lead vocal was balanced in its presentation, but there was more than that. The ear could better pick up the contrasting reverb hanging off the lead vocal and the backing harmonies. The latter was actually drenched in the stuff, while the lead vocal was slightly drier but also more detached from the band. This sort of subtle detail was always there, but the Disco Antistat clean had made that effect more obvious. The ear basically had to work less to catch those effects. Instrumentally, bass offered more character and tonal accuracy, while new detail emerged from the guitars. In fact, a rhythm guitar was pushed further forward into the mix, adding rich layering to the music. Now, during this process, during the actual cleaning process, I found that the stars of the entire show, the highlight of this entire product, are the two little brushes inside the bath, the two fixed light whitish coloured brushes that you'll see inside the bath. Now, I'm told, I hear, that these are goat hair brushes and they have a relative stiffness, well, stiff enough to get deep inside the vinyl groove. Now, what these brushes do that many other vinyl cleaning accessories don't is that they supply a measure of attrition. Gentle attrition, nothing too aggressive, nothing too harsh, gentle attrition. But most actual cleaning products, and that actually includes more expensive record cleaning machines, they don't apply attrition, and you will need attrition to get rid of some of the hard to shift muck and grime in the groove. Now, what sort of hard to shift muck and grime am I talking about? Now, the formula or recipe of a typical vinyl record consists of a dozen or more different chemicals. It's not just PVC, and one of those chemicals is designed to leach oil, I suppose, from within itself, from within the record during the pressing process. This oil is sometimes wrongly called a mold release agent, as if it's something applied externally to the pressing process to eject the final finished record. It's not. This oil, as I say, is leached from within, and yes, it helps the record to be ejected from the press. But this actual oil sits in the groove. It's never actually removed, and this is one reason why you need to clean brand new records. If this stuff is left in situ, it will harden and it'll prove difficult to actually remove. And in my experience, in my tests, most cleaning products fail to actually properly remove all of this hardened oil. It's not just mold release agents, it's things like sweat and other oils which settle and harden and also stick other grimy bits into the groove as they harden. But the mold release agents, I'll call it that for now, is the main issue here. And in my experience, the only way to get rid of it is through attrition. If you're going to throw money at the problem, you'll use an ultrasonic cleaner, because those little bursting bubbles in the cavitation process of an ultrasonic cleaner will be the attrition which gets rid of that oil. If you can't afford that, if you have to go manual, if you're limited by budget, then those little goat hairs in the center of the Disco Antistat perform the same task. They actually work on those grooves in an attritional process, and it's unique. I don't know any other product which does this to a vinyl disc. Certainly felt pads don't do it, the gentle carbon brushes don't do it, other machines like the Disco Antistat don't do it. Why? Because they use pads and they don't use brushes. And even more expensive record cleaning machines don't do it. Which is why the Disco Antistat is so good. Now, as part of this review, I also brought in a spin clean, which is the, I'd say, more modern equivalent of the Disco Antistat. The Disco Antistat is the older design of the two. In fact, there are more variants on the spin clean variation of design. You'll see a host of these in Amazon. There are a host of similar looking designs that you can pick up on Amazon and eBay and elsewhere. And they all look the same and they all perform in the same way, and they have one critical change, and that is they don't include those goat hair brushes. Instead, they use pads. It's the pads which sit on the vinyl record, and it's the pads that do the cleaning. But unfortunately, the pads offer no attritional help to your cleaning process. So you don't get the same sort of efficiency. You don't get the same sort of performance, and that's why the Spin Clean is not as good a cleaner as the Disco Anti-Stat. In my opinion, the Disco Anti-Stat is far superior, and it's down to those brushes. So I did an actual A/B head-to-head test between a Spin Clean machine and a Disco Anti-Stat, and to repeat, the Disco Anti-Stat won hands down in terms of sonics. Now there is a problem with the Disco Anti-Stat, and it's this: it's the included liquid. And the problem isn't necessarily a sonic issue, it's more physical, I suppose. I have used the Disco Anti-Stat liquid in the past, and I'm reviewing it now. And now, just as then, the liquid forms a deposit on the stylus as it plays, which means that you're constantly cleaning your stylus after every side of vinyl play. You can even see a build-up after one single album track is played through. After cleaning my stylus, I repeated the play process. Same side, same LP, and yes, there was more residue stuck to the stylus, which demanded another clean, which is rather irritating. More than that, if your stylus is scooping up a residue off the groove walls and the floor, then that means the stylus is not as close to the vinyl itself and may very well be playing the Disco Anti-Static liquid. Just how many times would I have had to allow my stylus to run through these grooves before this residue actually stopped collecting? Well, I wasn't going to find out. Action needed to be taken. It also indicated that, quite possibly, performance could be improved still by the Disco Anti-Stat machine if a replacement formula could be used instead. This is why I flew in my go-to bath liquid, a simple affair that I utilise when cleaning vinyl in an ultrasonic cleaner. I use it in my ultrasonic cleaner's bath, that is pure distilled water plus 7% isopropyl alcohol. Now in another video on this channel, which I put here, I do say that all you really need in terms of alcohol use is 1%. If you add 1% to the bath of your liquid, alcohol will do its job. You don't need any more than 1%. So why am I using 7%? Well, that's because I'm also using something called glycol, and I will get to why I use glycol in a later video, which will look at cleaning your vinyl just in general terms, and I'll explain why I use glycol and what that does and all that business. For now, before I get to that, 1% alcohol is fine. So before we get to that cleaning video, if you want to get on and clean your vinyl now in the Disco Anti-Stat, just fill the bath with distilled water and just for now use 1% alcohol, 1% isopropyl alcohol. That's all you need. You don't need any more than that, and that will do the job. The alcohol will perform its little wondrous bits of magic and you'll be sorted. Don't worry about the difference between 1 and 7 just for now. Like I say, I'll talk about that in a later video. It'll take a while. This video is going to be long enough as it is. But back to the cleaning. I first cleaned the Disco Anti-Stat bath, added my little simple concoction and repeated the sonic tests. The result? No residue. Hurrah! The sound also showed an increase in imagery around the central stereo image, plus enhanced bass performance. Not excessively, but enough to provide better tonal balance. So the vocal now had a slight extra weight, which gave the lead singer's voice more structure and body. Bass guitar was prominent in the mix, allowing the ear to easily track it throughout, while percussion had heft and power now. Even the vocal harmonies had a sense of chocolate smoothness that was missing earlier. The extremes of the upper mids offered a touch of extra insight. Cymbal taps sounded like cymbal taps and less like a snake hissing in the rear of the mix. That said, there was a slight fly in the ointment, a touch of hardness at times in the upper mids. So I wanted to see if I could get rid of this little hardness I could hear in the upper mids. What I mean by that is when the volume was loud and you had a vocalist and he was really belting it out and he gave a crescendo, your ears would go, ooh, ah. It would have that slight edge, that slight bright brittleness, and it would make a little pain in your ear, basically. So I wanted to get rid of that. So what to do? So I decided to bring in a surfactant. Now, I have done an entire video on surfactants, and I'll put a link up yonder. So check that out. What I decided to do was to bring in my Tergitol, or Tergiclean, that's the brand name for the variant I'm using, and I used a surfactant based around the Tergitol, and I applied that to my record, and then I added that to the Disco Anti-Stat bath for a good old clean. Same bath water, the distilled water and a touch of alcohol, and I cleaned my record thus. The sonic results were, for a manual cleaning machine, quite breathtaking. I have to say, the sheer complexity of the information now on offer was absolutely magnificent. It was the delightful combination of dynamic reach and detail that was, at least initially, quite overwhelming. My ears darted here and there in an attempt to take it all in. The lead vocal now had nuance and emotive intricacy instead of the earlier one-dimensional monolith that I was hearing before. The backing harmonies were packed with texture and a layered delivery. Percussion was tonally balanced and organic with it, but retained power. Guitars offered a weight in resonance terms, but also a beautiful mid-range insight. And, well, I could go on for 3 sides of A4. I really could. Oh, and before I ended, I grabbed 2 old, pretty ragged records, one from Peggy Lee and the other one from James Taylor. Both exhibited cracks and pops during play and needed some TLC, and both received it from the Disco Anti-Stat 2. Now, the cracks and pops reduced dramatically after the cleaning process. The play wasn't completely silent, sure, but I noticed a second clean improved matters further, and additional cleans would surely improve the sound down the line, while I wondered if a few of those pops may very well have been the result of vinyl damage. Neither of my records brought in from a car boot specifically for this test were in great condition. Physical damage is something no vinyl cleaner can fix, I'm afraid. Still, the differences were stark and welcome after treatment. So what do I think of the Disco Anti-Stat? Well, this thing is easy to assemble and use. It's sturdy and strong in terms of build, but with an affordable price to boot. The Disco Anti-Stat might not arrive with the perfect cleaning liquid, but everything else about this vinyl cleaner is about as near perfect as you're going to get for the asking price. Once you sort out the correct preparation and cleaning liquid, the amount of information reaching the ear is impressive indeed, giving the music you listen to an incredible maturity. If you do grab a sample, it will reward you with a quite stunning cleaning and sonic performance. And I have to say, where it sits in its price point for a manual vinyl cleaner, there is nothing better. In fact, in my opinion, it is the market leader. That's how good the Nosty Disco Anti-Stat is. That's me done. Thank you very much for staying to the end of this video. Thank you also too for your support. Please, if you could click the like and, if you'd be so kind, the subscribe buttons below, I'd be very much appreciated. And I look forward to your company in the next video. Hopefully you can join me then. Until that time, bye bye for now.